Welcome to the Performance Enhancing Podcast. It's like steroids for your brain. A podcast for people looking to live life at their peak potential. Chock full of real-world tools and knowledge that you can apply in your life today. By providing you with a lens into the lives, beliefs, practices, and actions of those who are already living extraordinary lives, the Performance Enhancing Podcast will help you shift your mindset or create that change in your daily rituals and habits so you can explode with success in the areas of life that are most important to you. So get ready for another dose of Performance Enhancing Podcast with SatoriPrime. Here's your host, Ilan Ferdman.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Pep Talk Performance Enhancing Podcast with your host, Ilan Ferdman. I'm so excited to share this next interview with you in two parts. It's with my good buddy, Peter Shallard, and this was probably one of the best interviews I've had in a long time. So the biggest thing that I have to coach entrepreneurs on, or people that want to start a business, or really anyone, the number one hindrance in people producing results is what? Procrastination. And that's exactly the topic that we're going to delve into, not in a theoretical way, but a very analytical case study, Harvard professor, science-based way. You're going to understand for the first time why you procrastinate. And you're going to understand how to get out of it and what the secret weapons of the elite that we're using are. This is a powerfully packed interview. I can't wait to share with you. The only thing I'll tell you is, for whatever reason, the audio at times when Peter's speaking is a little bit echoey. It's not too bad, but it's not the usual, clean audio that we had. I don't know what happened in the recording, but you need to put all that aside because honestly, this is a sit down and take a lot of notes. If you're in the car, you can listen to it, but I'm sure you're going to want to listen to it again. It is just that good. So my guest today is Peter Shallard, Committed Action. Just get ready to enjoy really epic conversation. Super happy we finally got together to do it. And I'm sure you're absolutely going to love it. So this is part one. I won't steal any of the thunder. Let's just dive right in. All right, everyone, welcome back. So I got a good buddy of mine. We've known each other now, Peter, for how long? Like 3 years almost? 2.5, 3 years?
3 years.
3 years. Yeah. Super smart individual around productivity, procrastination, just how to kick ass as an entrepreneur. So I'm really finally excited to have you on the show. We've spoken about this for quite some time. Yeah. So Peter, welcome, man.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited too.
Yeah, we just met up for dinner like the other night, and we're like, "How have you not been on the show yet?"
It's what we do every time. We have this really epic conversation, and then just the two of us are like, "That was a great talk. We should really do something." And then we're like, "Yep, see you next month." And then
exactly. So now you guys get to listen to us having one of these epic talks. So Peter, why don't you just start by telling people a little bit about your background and how you got to doing what you do right now?
Okay, cool. So very abridged summary. My background's in psychology. My first business was a therapy practice. I'm from New Zealand, and I had a brick and mortar business, which came with all sorts of brick and mortar challenges. When I figured out what those were and started learning about how to create business success myself, I ended up starting to specialize in working with entrepreneurs. And long story short, I did some corporate consulting. I built a brand as the Shrink for Entrepreneurs online, started blogging about business and psychology back in the days when no one was really doing that. And
when was that?
I started the blog about 7 years ago, I think.
Okay.
So, wow. Yeah. And and I managed to use that as a platform to connect with some of the most incredible entrepreneurs all over the world, a lot of whom are in the States. Made them move over to New York about 5 years ago and built a practice with some really amazing Silicon Valley guys, people who are building businesses with 100 million plus market caps, that kind of stuff. And somewhere along the way, I decided that I wanted to do something that scaled. And I started really digging into the problem of procrastination and this issue that prevents the vast majority of entrepreneurs who are starting out from really getting to where they want to be. So I noticed this huge divide between the super sort of successful and elite entrepreneurs and the people who are just starting out, and it seemed to have a lot to do with execution. So I played around in that space and ended up starting a company called Commit Action about 2 or 3 years ago. And that's really my baby now. That's the thing that I'm more and more focused on. And we essentially help small business owners kill procrastination and take a ton of action and build their business. What it's all about.
Well, I know from our listeners, none of them ever suffer from procrastination.
Absolutely not. I don't even know why I'm here.
I would hands down say that the number one issue for every person I coach is some form, like they'll say it in a fancy way, but it's procrastination.
Right.
So let's dive into that to start. What are some of the things, because you guys have done a ton of research on this, right? This is not backed by like, hey, this sounds good. This is backed by some serious research, right?
Yeah. I mean, so I've always been a bit of a skeptic at heart. And when I started this company, I wanted to make sure that we were really moving the dial in a kind of concrete way. So right out of the gate, we brought on an advisory board with some amazing people from, like we have the professor of positive psychology at NYU. We worked with a neuroscience professor at Harvard Medical School who was obsessed with behavior change and whether or not coaching could actually move the dial on that, and all that kind of fun stuff. And so with these guys, we've had access to phenomenal kind of research and ideas. There's some really cool stuff that's happened in the last maybe 10, 15 years to understand from an empirical point of view, what is it that can actually like predict and move the dial on human success? And, we've done some crazy stuff. We've spoken to over 10,000 entrepreneurs on the phone, one-to-one, tracked all sorts of metrics based on the impact of those conversations. The thing that we really find scary for small business owners these days is that there's this crazy shift happening in the world and so few people are talking about it. And it's all because of technology. And you know this better than anybody. It has never been easier to start a business. And there are more people doing it every single day. You can get a laptop, put on your PJs, go down to your basement and just start building. And so lots of people are excited about that opportunity, us included. The problem with it is that it's putting humans in a psychological environment that we're just absolutely not geared toward. Yeah. Like this is the first time in however many hundreds of thousands of years you have been not only able to provide for yourself, but like thrive, like really build success in a basement in your PJs.
Yep.
And you're all alone. And what we're finding is that entrepreneurs are feeling alone, isolated, more isolated than ever, and more overwhelmed than ever, and more distracted than ever. Because while you're in there, you feel like you're focused. You feel like you're in your basement doing your thing. But actually, there's this device in front of you that's connected you with 3 billion, 4 billion people who are plugged in right now. And it's in your face. And your brain is trying to figure out, based on this, this wetware that's millions of years old, trying to figure out, well, how do I succeed in this environment? And most people are getting here, like the week before they started, their boss was just saying, get the report on my desk on Friday. And they were like, great, I can work with that, right? So this is a brand new problem. And even our parents' generation, they just can't fathom the challenge that we face. They didn't experience anything like it. And I think that's the trend that we're seeing. Like a lot of people, I think my first message is that a lot of people think that they're struggling, they're procrastinating, they're not showing up as the best version of themselves every day, and they're beating themselves up. Yeah. And when we started digging into the science, the first kind of positive message was, maybe it's not your fault. Maybe we're all biting off this huge challenge that's a little bit bigger than a lot of us can chew. So,
do you think, I'd never even had this thought before, but I'm just curious, like each generation has its own transition, right? Like people went from living in caves to an agricultural age. Then we went through like an industrial age, things like that. This is, I guess, what we're calling the digital age, I guess, if we can say anything like that.
Yeah.
Our brains have obviously had to, through every one of those major shifts in life, have had to do something. Like, do you think that we adjust at some point? Like, does the brain catch up to what is it that we're doing? Because, like, I have 2 young kids, and I can tell you, at 3 years old, they can handle a phone better than most adults can. And it's scary. I'm like, are they genetically programmed to do this stuff? Like, does that stuff happen? Are you guys realizing that younger generation have better capacity to deal with this stuff already?
I think that digital natives, like your kids are going to grow up and just be able to like hack an iPad or whatever, like right out of the gate, you know, like they're like, I remember when I saw my niece run up to a big plasma screen display in a mall and start touching it. And she was so frustrated that she couldn't swipe, right? Like, it was like, I was like, no, honey, that's like your mom and your uncle's technology. Like, don't worry about that. Crazy. And for sure, these kids are going to be technically more competent than we could ever imagine, without a doubt. But I think that there's some biological stuff, there's some evolutionary psychology stuff that changes a hell of a lot more slowly.
Mm-hmm.
It, you know, even if we're good at manipulating the tools, our brain is just going to struggle with, you know, the fact that if you're building a business as an entrepreneur, even if you're like a millennial, you feel like you grew up with all of this stuff. The more you double down on productivity and the harder you work on your business, which is arguably something you should be doing, the more kind of disconnected and isolated you're going to feel, right? Like the more you hustle, the more you're kind of painting yourself into a corner where some of the psychological factors that made entrepreneurs of yesteryear, like previous generations, so successful are actually absent, you know? And I don't think that that's ever going to change anytime soon. I also think that we're always going to be suckered in by the instant gratification. Like the fact that you can hit Alt Tab or whatever it is and just fire up Facebook and immediately get these endorphin dopamine hits from people liking your stuff. That's a weird place for a human to be. Like we're primarily these sort of social animals. We care very deeply about our monkey tribe and whether or not they like us and whether or not we're going to get to the fruit before everybody else, you know? Yep. This stuff is important. And I think that even in 50 years' time, we're going to see entrepreneurs who can really get hugely distracted by these kinds of things. And they're not going away. In fact, there's going to be more and more of them.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to make a distinction because I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs. There's very few entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
It's like what you said in the beginning, just because you left your corporate job and there's no longer a boss telling you to put reports on your desk does not make you an entrepreneur.
Right.
There's a huge educational curve that needs to happen for you to actually succeed in your basement or wherever it is that you are.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like what I'm hearing from you is that there's kind of this machine running in the background at all times, right?
In terms of our brain?
In terms of our brain, yeah.
Right.
And we're like, this is what we got to work with. Like it's not changing at the pace that the world is. It probably never will.
Yeah. I mean, like you called it like a digital revolution, right? Like the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, and now this like technology digital revolution. It's happening so much quicker than our brains can evolve or adapt. I mean, fundamentally, there's no change generation to generation. Your kids' brains are more or less the same as yours. And except for the fact that they've been warped by, you know, by you.
Yeah. So if that's the machine running in the background and the world is changing and now we have to deal with it differently, what are the tools that we can use to play with the machine that we have, quote unquote, because we're not going to, you know, disassemble it. Like that's what we got. So because I know that's where you guys focus on, like, what do we do now to enhance and use tools to actually make us productive in this digital age, quote unquote?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think that like one of the most critical distinctions that we've stumbled upon is this idea that is the line between kind of learning and execution. Because you put it right. Like there's a ton of people out there who go and start businesses and they need tools. They need to figure out what to do. And that's great. And it's actually a really fun and rewarding time for newbie entrepreneurs. I'm not going to call them wannabes because I'm saying someone who's just started. We don't know if they're going to work, if it's going to work out or not, but they're going to go and educate themselves. And that's really cool. And, you know, speaking of digital revolution, we live in a time where there is more information available than any previous generation could possibly.
In your pocket.
Right. So we're like, it's like a fire hose. We're drowning in information. And the cool thing about that is that's making everything very democratic. You can kind of be any, it doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter. Geography doesn't matter. Your education doesn't matter. So long as you have the ability to self-educate, you can now build a business by jumping on the internet and getting access to these resources. But there comes a time, right, where you don't need to learn anymore. You need to take action on what you already know that you should be doing. And I think that that's probably the first barrier to self-sabotage that we see in a statistically significant way. And I'm talking like the vast majority, 90% plus of new business owners hit this obstacle again and again. And we've demonstrated this, where they fail to cross a line from learning execution into action taking.
Love that.
Yeah. And
I love that.
I think that the first kind of tool, the first practical takeaway that I would want anyone who feels like they might be there to focus on is basically identifying that you have the resources that you need. Now, if you don't have the resources that you need, you know it, right? Like there's a fundamental knowledge, I think, somewhere in here where you're like, I don't know what to do. But when there's businesses like yours, like when SatoriPrime is around, you can fix that problem. Like fundamentally, no one has an information problem anymore.
Yeah.
It's very, very temporary. You jump on your phone, you Google it, you solve the argument in the bar. Like if you have a business strategy question, if you're willing to invest in fix it and solving that problem and answering that question, you can do it in a day.
Yeah, easy.
Right. So yeah, the first tool is kind of really focusing on the self-awareness to realize that the obstacle, after a certain point, the obstacle holding you back is not a lack of knowledge. And in fact, that you're probably drowning in knowledge. And in fact, that continuing to download more and more knowledge is just going to contribute to the sense of overwhelm that you feel. And I think that this is the thing I'm not really giving a tool here. I'm giving a sort of a thing to watch out for, a bump in the road. The thing that we've seen, this weird pattern that emerges, is that entrepreneurs start to feel overwhelmed by all the stuff they know they have to do. They've downloaded trainings on X. They've got a workshop on Y. They're trying to figure that out. And they begin to feel overwhelmed. So then they think, I need to go find another tactic to make me less overwhelmed. And they start searching for that. And it's kind of like bright, shiny object syndrome.
Yes.
Right? Like they go looking for that medicine. They're like, all this stuff seems really confusing. I need to get the one thing that isn't. And they go on that hunt again and they find more stuff. They get more books. They attend more webinars. They do, like whatever it is. And they're just bombarding their brain. The tool is to realize there's like a 99% chance you don't have an information problem. You have an execution problem.
Do you think that obviously to the brain, this is what you said when you started, it's very exciting when you go and make that switch into like this whole learning mode.
Right.
And the brain, it's almost like it wakes up again because you've kind of like done this robotic thing for so long, and then you start pounding it with information. You're like, oh my God, this feels so good, right? So I'm sure there's, like dopamine and endorphins and all that stuff is like firing in the brain, and you get really, really excited about that. What I'm kind of thinking is like, so that happens in learning. Execution aspect of business is where it's scary. Right. You don't know how it will work. Chances are you'll fail more than once. And so do you feel like people get stuck in that learning pathway because it feels good, and then this other pathway is so freaking scary?
Yeah. So this is why you're a rock star, because you've just articulated something that it took us 2 years to actually dig into and sort of prove out that was actually happening.
Well, I didn't prove it. I was just thinking it.
No, but it's remarkably perceptive, and it's totally right on. What we noticed is that there is absolutely a positive emotional association that happens when people are in that learning phase of business.
Yeah.
The reason is that everything, when you're learning about business tactics or strategies, everything is optimistic, right?
Yeah.
Like there's very few training programs that are like, like maybe you and I should create one, which is like 101 crucial mistakes that you're probably going to make, and let's shit all over all of them. And like, no one goes to that training and gets really bummed out, right?
Yeah.
Like, everything is like, here's an amazing marketing strategy. Here's how to find the business that you're really passionate about. Here's how to do X, Y, and Z. And even if it's really tactical, hard-hitting stuff that would be taught in some MBA program that seems really nitty and gritty, when you start digging into anything, it's a fundamentally optimistic experience because you have this perception of potential. You're thinking, man, what could I do with this?
Yeah.
And it's what behavioral psychologists call the phase of uninformed optimism. And what that means is you just haven't yet gotten into the nitty gritty, like that advice that all the real smart business gurus kind of give the folks like Seth Godin and Richard Branson. They all say, I'm more proud of my failures than I am of my successes. Sure. I wouldn't be where I am without them. What they mean by that is that when you take an idea that you're optimistic about, that you're ultimately uninformed about, you don't know how it's going to shake out, and you start digging into it, you hit the dip. It's going to be difficult. The execution part is going to be shocking. It's going to challenge all sorts of assumptions. You're going to find that something you thought was going to be easy is actually the most difficult thing ever. And this is a very uncomfortable place to be for a lot of people. So if you just keep on jumping to new ideas, new tactics, and downloading new information, filling your head up with new stuff, you're forever renewing that sense of optimism. And it's funny, that's like the fundamental self-sabotage, right? Is getting trapped in a space where instead of actually doing anything, you just keep moving from idea to idea to idea, where with each of those ideas, you can believe this has the potential to be the biggest thing ever.
That's so good. It's so good. Wow. I make a lot of videos online, both from a marketing perspective to entrepreneurs who are either starting or are successful and want to reach that next level. And you just gave me a whole bunch of really good ideas about how to position things, because like we market on YouTube a lot, for example, right? And we put our videos in front of other people's videos. And I just said this the other day, like people are on YouTube to educate themselves.
Right.
Like get information, right? To like suck from that information hose. And yet they do this for years, whether it's like Tony Robbins videos or, Esther Hicks or this motivational speaker or that motivational speaker. And very few, I mean, you know this too, very few ever change their life. Like they think that by the virtue of watching these things, somehow their life will improve.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Well, from a neurological point of view, these people are almost literally getting high off of the potential that the videos imply, right? Like that material implies. I mean, this literally creates a dopamine response.
Yeah.
You're flooding your brain with this happy kind of neurochemical stew and feeling really excited about what could be. And I think this is the challenge of entrepreneurship, is that taking an idea and making it real, actually making it an abstract concept concrete, is not a positive experience. Like it fundamentally is not as neurologically delicious as just focusing on ideas.
Yeah.
It never is going to be. And this is the hustle. Like this is the part of entrepreneurship that no one can deny is going to hurt a little bit. And if anyone tries to tell anyone who's watching this or listening in, it's going to feel good the whole time.
What?
Like run a mile. You can't get far enough away.
Yeah. It's so funny. I was just on a coaching call, like literally right before we got on. And this girl was telling me how she went through this experience, and it was pretty much like this point of losing her business and like going into bankruptcy. And then on the other side of it, her business 8x'd. Like, and this happened in like that. And I said, here's the funny part. I've interviewed hundreds of successful entrepreneurs. Every single one of us has that same exact story. Everyone like has this story of, I almost lost it all. And then it kind of like that dip that Godin always talks about. It's like right before that, you're gonna hit, or not hit bottom, but like feels like you're about to hit bottom, and then it bounces up. So I'm curious, like you guys find all this stuff out, okay? that, I'm assuming, is the reason people procrastinate. That's kind of what you've come up with, right? They're addicted to the feeling. The procrastination comes because this hurts, this feels good, I don't want to do that. How do we bridge that gap, and how do we get them into action and just going through that process anyway?
Right. So this is our secret sauce, right? This is the juju, and I'm gonna give you a little bit of it. So here's probably one of the most practical ways that people can change this. I'm trying to think. When we look at guys like Mark Zuckerberg as an inspiration for entrepreneurs, again, we're putting ourselves in a kind of an unwinnable game because we're holding up this rock star as someone who we want to be like. And Zuckerberg has a really crazy thing that you don't have if you're starting your business in your PJs on your laptop. When he shows up to work, he is, for better or for worse, caught in a web of accountability. So he has a direct report team of executives that he meets with on Monday morning, and those people need him to show up and provide leadership and vision, right? And on Friday afternoon, he's troubleshooting with his top guys and setting the overall strategy for the software or whatever he's doing. So there's these demands that are being made on him constantly to perform. Same deal with Richard Branson, right? He can chill in a hammock and just talk to people on the phone because people are going to call him up and ask for that Branson secret sauce. And so for him, it's a reactive way of operating as an entrepreneur. He just chills, and then the questions come to him, and he mentors, and he gives his vision. He just riffs, and then he builds these billion-dollar companies. When you're starting a business, and this is the thing that the fundamental shift that so many people miss. When you're starting a business, you have none of that. Everything that you're doing is 100% proactive. There's no urgency. No one is asking you to do anything. When you have, when you're just starting out, you don't even have a customer that you're accountable to yet, And so you're the one who has to push your performance the whole way. It's just you. You're all alone. What we've noticed is that entrepreneurs who seek out and artificially, and it is artificial, create accountability early on are stacking the odds in their favor, and they're more likely to win. So what we encourage people to do, fundamentally, and this isn't a plug, but fundamentally my company provides accountability services, but we actually recommend all our clients and even the people who just come check out our stuff and never sign up for our membership. We tell everybody, stack as much accountability as you possibly can in your life. If you're just starting out as an entrepreneur, the first thing that you need to do is go and seek out community of like-minded people to make sure that you're not feeling alone. Because your brain is literally adjusting to last week having a boss who would fire you if you didn't get the report on his desk. Then you quit your job, start your own business, and there's a vacuum. Your brain isn't going to just, you might be excited for the first week and you might get a lot done, but week 2, that Netflix is going to be looking real tempting.
Yep.
You can't expect yourself to perform in an accountability vacuum, and you can't read inspirational biographies of billionaires and try to hold yourself to those standards without realizing that these guys sit within a web of hundreds of people. Below them, they have all those staff. They have a board of investors above them who are literally breathing down their neck and being, Mark, I really need you to turn every dollar I gave you into $100 more. You got that? You got that?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of pressure. Now, it's a good pressure. It's a healthy pressure. And it makes these guys show up every day as the best version of themselves. And this is the question that I ask every small business owner. Is there anyone in your life on a Friday afternoon who knows whether or not you just phoned it in that week or you absolutely crushed it? And I mean really knows. I don't mean your significant other who, if you say, hey, I had a great week, they go, oh, did you really? That's cool. I mean, is there anyone who actually knows if you're crushing it or if you're just phoning it in? And if the answer is no, then you have a massive accountability problem, and your brain is not going to thrive until you fix it.
Accountability. You've heard us talk about it time and time and time again. This was, like I said in the beginning, such a powerful interview. In part 2, we go even deeper. We go into the internal, the darkness of being an entrepreneur. I mean, really, really amazing things. Definitely come back and check out part 2. In the show notes, you guys definitely want to check out if you resonated with this and you realize that you're not producing the results that you want, and you do have, in fact, an accountability problem, I want to give you 2 resources. One is click on the link in the show notes and you can find out more about Peter's program. The other is we have what we are now calling our Have It All Academy, which you can find out at SatoriPrime.com/have it all. And there's a video there. I explain what it is. If you're looking for some mindset training just like this about how to stop procrastinating, how to get out of this just obsessively learning mode and actually put things into action in your life so that you can get results and do it quickly, we do 90-day challenges in this group setting, and people just get incredible results in their lives, in their businesses, with their health, with their family, with their kids. It's just epic, absolutely epic. So SatoriPrime.com/have it all, and you can find out all the details there. Make sure to come back for part 2 of my interview with Peter, and hope you're having an amazing rest of your week.
Did you run through doors till you hit the floor? Did you read my eyes and my aching thoughts? Did you walk through walls till you had to grow? Oh my God, your smile and my soundless calls.